flash you gave me, Pinka?
Yeah.
It's in the shot now. I
Nice.
put it on we have a bookshelf.
Oh, behind you at your
Yep,
house.
behind me.
Do you guys record at your house?
Yep.
Awesome.
That's the front living room.
I know I wish I had mugs or something, but.
Yeah. Those are nice though.
Thank you.
The ones you have, yeah, I like that the design of it. And so now it's in the shot. I like it. And everybody, and even like this guy here, he was the guy on the show. Track runner, he's a runner. We had another guy that was into fashion as well. So everybody, I like to support the people especially that are supporting in the groundwork, especially you. I'm gonna tell you something. So like, what I was doing.
I don't know why.
Huh?
I don't know why you just said that, but I'm ready to hear why.
Let me tell you, when I was because we had booked like because we've been doing this for 4 months. So within like the first month and some change, we had the entire year all the way up to December booked out, and I was planning to next year. I was planning out 2021, and so it moved quickly. People got behind this quicker than what I expected, right? So it's just kind of pushing me really hard. So I wanted to get more local people involved. Like get more local businesses involved like that. So I was coming around and then I saw your place and I was like, what is that? And I saw Pinka. I said, well, I'm just gonna go in there because I want things that are more owner operated. Mm-hmm. I will take franchises too, but those are hard to get to people.
Very hard. So
I came in here, talked to your mom, met your mom, and it was like, boom. Literally, this is the last stop. I stayed in here the rest of the time.
Yeah, you were here for a while.
I was here for a while. Just talking.
Well, she had texted me and she's like, there's somebody here, you need to come here. And I'm like, I can't get there yet, but it was a while. And I was like, all right, I'll be right there. But she's like, he's got like a podcast and he's super interesting and you got to come and meet him. She's like, you're going to love him. I'm like, all right, well, I'll be right there. So, and you stayed for a while after I got back.
Yeah.
I was like,
I met your brother too.
Vaughn and my little sister works here too. So.
Oh, was she here at the opening night?
Yes.
I didn't get a chance to see her.
Yeah.
Wait.
She was at the door.
Was she at the register?
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't. I wasn't introduced to her, but I did.
Next time you come in, I'll have to.
Wow.
She's very cool. She drives ambulance at night.
Really?
Yes. Yep. So she works 4 days a week driving ambulance. Oh, 2 days a week driving ambulance, and 2 days a week she works as a CNA in the hospital. But she's going for her paramedic and her full nursing degree.
Wow.
But she went to nursing school on a scholarship for the oboe.
What is that?
What's the oboe?
Yeah.
It's a reed instrument that's incredibly hard to play. And
Oh,
you play
wait,
like
hold
an
on.
orchestra.
The instrument oboe.
Yeah, the oboe.
Oh.
So she went to nursing school on an oboe scholarship.
Wow.
Yeah. Super rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's 16 years younger than me, so.
Wow.
She was born when I was just almost 16.
How old is your brother? That's your older brother?
No, he's my younger brother. He's 3 years younger, so he's about to be 38 this year. So we're like 2.5 years apart. But he'll be 38 in a couple weeks, actually, November 6th.
Wow.
But we've worked together since I started having him bar back for me when he was 17 years old.
Really?
Yep, and we've been pretty much inseparable ever since. And like I said, we live 2 doors down from each other.
Wow.
The only time that we ever were really separate from each other is when he went into the Air Force. So.
You have a close family.
Yes, very cool. Now, there's been times when we've been spread out, and
Right.
you know, my mom and I probably are the people that are like total opposites of each other. Mm-hmm. So you know, it's like they've been in Utah for a long time. Well, they were in Vegas before that because I moved to Vegas when I met my ex-husband in 2003. And then they ended up moving out there, my little sister and my mom as well. Mm-hmm. And then they ended up just staying. We ended up going to California and Missouri and then here. So it's been a long time since the whole family's actually been together. So probably, with my brother, probably about 2001.
Wow.
And now we all live within 1 mile of each other.
Yeah.
So it was really important to me, especially when my daughter was passing, that I didn't have them close. And that was really hard because even for them to come back when she went into hospice, they came back. But flights, and my mom's getting older. So when I decided to do this, like really decided to do this over a year ago, I told her I want her to be part of it. This is her dream. Like, it's not only my dream, but it's hers too, because she's taught in art galleries and music galleries for other people our entire lives. And I wanted her to have some kind of feeling of ownership here, where she can come in, teach her lessons, do whatever art she wants, and it's hers. It's not somebody telling her what to do. And I think she's almost 70. So for me to be able to give that to her right now, it's really important. And that's why it's hard that starting during COVID and it being slow, because I feel like you don't want to disappoint people, but at the same time, you just want to keep the doors open. So it's like, it's really hard. So.
Wow.
But I love having my family near me now.
Yeah, that is cool, man. That is so cool. I'm 1 of 7. Our family is like, right? We got a whole tribe. Our family is fairly close. We're close. And that's all I've known. Like, we've had friends growing up, but majority of it was just family.
Yeah, my mom always moved us into the middle of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it was just us as kids. There's 4 of us actually. I have an older sister, so I'm the middle, and I'm like total typical middle child. But my older sister is estranged. She's not really close to us. Yeah. But growing up, we were like, that was it. Like, my mom was a single mom. She worked all the time, so she worked morning until night. So we were always left just us kids, you know. And then my sister 16 years later. So it was a little bit different for her because we were more like her parent than her sibling. But the 3 older ones, I mean, that's all we had. You know, it was like we were putting each other to bed, we were doing homework, everything. So to me, I love having my siblings around because it makes me feel like I was when I was little. Like, my brother is my best friend in the whole world, 100%. Wow. That's why I bought the second the house 2 doors down came up for sale. I went that day and put a full price offer just because I wanted to live next to my brother, which is people find very weird. But yeah, I love him to death.
That's great. Cool. I have twin brothers. My twin brothers, they're older than me. They bought a house right next door to each other.
Right next door?
Right next door.
Yeah.
Same floor plan. I think it's different by 1 bedroom.
That's so funny.
Both 2 stories. And it's just. And I think it's one bedroom different.
I've been here.
But they did that.
13 years almost, and about maybe 2 years ago. So we're about 10 years in. A good friend of ours, who we've known for a long time, the whole time we've lived here, was sitting and he goes, "I just found out that you and your brother are husband and wife." I'm like, ew. He's like, we're always together.
Jeez.
And I'm like, no, brother and sister all the way.
Yeah.
But when we go to like local places, people are always like, tell us stories about like growing up, because people never believe us. They're like, you have the craziest stories. And even when my mom moved here, we had a bunch of people like coming to here and they're like, are their stories true, or are they like lying to us? And my mom's like, no, they're all true. Like, we've had a crazy life.
Wow.
So, which has kind of brought me to where I am now and wanting to put roots down, because I've personally moved 44 times.
44?
44.
And you actually kept up. That's insane.
44 times in my life, and I turned 40 in April.
Wow. Yeah. So almost every year. Well, over in some cases.
Once every year, yeah. So it's been a lot. Yeah. But I always attribute it to being able to talk to people and being able to make new friends and being able to acclimate myself to different places, because without a lot of people stay in the same place their whole life. Yeah. You know, and then they get kind of culture shock when they have to go someplace else. But I love traveling. I love, like, even for my son, he's 12 on Thursday, and he's moved like 10 times. Wow. Yeah. So we finally bought that house next to my brother to like put roots down. Yeah. And then obviously I found this space right around the corner, so it's kind of nice knowing that like this is our neighborhood, this is our people, this is like, we want to build roots here. We want to have this be where my son grows up and makes friends, and because growing up that way it's great. Yeah. But then I look at my own child and I'm like, maybe we need to put some roots down somewhere, you know, because it's all fun, but then you're like, oh well, bye to everybody all the time. So I think it's a little easier now because of social media. You can stay up with people, but 40 years ago, 30 years ago, once you said bye, that was it. That was it. That was it. You didn't see them ever again. Nope. You know, so it's it's interesting why we ended up really falling into this space right here, but I like it. So.
And I think a lot of it too, even with the moving and, you know, what happens in families, because we've had some doozies in my family as well, stories. But what it does is just pushes you together, because you're seeing, you know, you're overcoming things as a family. You're going through things as a family. And adversity is what builds relationships. It builds character in people, and it also builds the relationships. So you brought up your daughter.
Yeah, so Katie was born in 2005. She was due on Christmas Day.
Really? And
she was a shock for sure. I was told most of my life that I couldn't have children. And so I met my ex-husband Jerry, who's one of my very best friends in the whole world, still to this day.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, it is. That's a whole nother story. But we met on just out of chance, and we actually got pregnant on our honeymoon we went on our honeymoon a year later, because we got married in Vegas in the middle of the night at the Little White Chapel.
That's a real place?
It is a real place, and we actually got married by the same person that married Brittany Spears with her annulled marriage. And when I walked in, they were like, Brittany, and I was like, yeah. And he goes, I just married the other Brittany, and I was like, awesome. But we were married 13 years with 2 kids, so they don't all fail out of Vegas, right?
Right.
So we ended up, you know, finding out we were pregnant with Katie, and it was like a shock to everybody. Jerry has older children, so it was, you know, I was 23, and pregnancy was not the easiest.
Yeah.
But we lived at the time in Orange County, California, and they just kept telling me, oh, everything's fine, it's your first pregnancy. And I was like, no, I'm gaining a lot of weight, like I don't really feel like she's moving a lot. And they were like, no, you just don't know what you're talking about, you know. And so I gained 100 pounds with my pregnancy. And they were like, there's like, no one ever thought anything except that I was just like eating mashed potatoes all the time. So when I went in to have her, they were like, well, we think she's going to be really big, because I was 13 pounds when I was born. So they were like, all right, well, she'll probably be big. Let's just schedule a C-section. Well, they scheduled a C-section, and so she was due on Christmas Day. We ended up scheduling for December 20th. Went in totally normal, everything's normal. And the second that they cut her umbilical cord, she flatlined on us. Just she went from an Apgar of 10 to 0 in like that fast. At the same time, there was a very famous person having twins next to us, and their 2 twins went into distress. So people were leaving my room, coming in, like it was a bunch of chaos happening. And I just kept saying, just please help her, you know. And my doctor was like, I'm here for you, you know. So this was 15 years ago, and so they ended up reviving her, taking her to a NICU. So I never got to see her even. And it was before all these fancy camera phones. So Jerry went to the NICU with her, and it just didn't know what was wrong with her, and I didn't get to see her for like another 14 hours later. Except these grainy little tiny photos on like bad phones back then. You know?
Flip phones?
Flip phones, basically. And he kept coming back and showing me a picture of her and stuff, because we honestly didn't know if she was even going to survive like that night, you know. So she just was failure to thrive. We were in a NICU at Hoag Hospital for over a month. They told me that I couldn't take her home until she could eat on her own for 48 hours. So I would go up every day. They basically, when I had her, they told me I had to go home 2 days later. I'm pretty sure that my finger marks are still down that hallway, because I didn't want to leave her. It took 2 security guards and Jerry to carry me out of that hospital, because I was like, I'm not leaving her. You know, what if something happens? What if she doesn't make it? So I ended up going home, and every day I was going up there, spending as much time as I could, and they couldn't find anything wrong with her. She was just failure to thrive, wouldn't eat. They came to us and they said, well, we know that she's deaf, which to Jerry and I was devastating because Jerry's a sound engineer and sound is his entire life. So we were like, okay, we can deal with that. You know, we can figure that out. We ended up taking her home at about 5 weeks because I sat there for 48 hours, force-fed that child, and I said, if something's going to happen, I want it to happen at home. I don't want to be in this hospital anymore. Yeah. So, you know, she did okay, but maybe 2 weeks later we decided that we were going to move back to Missouri because we felt that St. Louis Children's Hospital was, if something was to go wrong, that we wanted to be near the best hospital in the country. Yeah. We just happened to own a home maybe 2 hours from that hospital. So we ended up moving back, and Jerry ended up going back out on tour with one of the bands he was with, and I was sitting watching American Idol of all shows, and I was holding her in my lap, and she turned blue and coded again on me.
While you were holding her?
While I was holding her. I performed CPR for 20 minutes while it took the ambulance to get there. Took her to the hospital in Columbia, Missouri, and they told me she choked, take her home, and I was like, nope, sorry. They're like, ma'am, we're discharging you. She choked. There's nothing wrong with this baby. I said, it's like she's allergic to her food. And they were like, there's nothing wrong. But come to find out, the disease she has often gets mistaked for Alzheimer's, where parents say their children are sick because they just can't find anything wrong. Right. I stood in the lobby of that hospital for 17 hours, holding my child, begging every single physician that passed by to help me with her because I knew there was something wrong with her. While Jerry was trying to come back from, he was either in Europe or Asia or something. One doctor passed by and he's like, can I help you? And I was like, I just want someone to look at her. He was a almost retired doctor in Columbia, Missouri, and he completely changed the course of our lives because he's like, here, I'm going to examine her, come here. Within hours, she was admitted and in brain surgery. Hours. And they told me she choked. So. Oh,
so you didn't leave from that incident?
We never left. We then left about 2 months later from that hospital.
Wow.
They thought she had hydrocephalus, where your brain swells and you retain brain fluid. They shunted her at 3 months old. So she had brain surgery at 3 months old. Jeez. And she just wasn't responding still. And this doctor that stopped, he said, I saw a case of this, something very similar months ago, but I doubt that's what it is because it's so incredibly rare. How would we have it at the hospital twice? And 6 weeks later, he's like, I want to do a biopsy. 6 weeks later, she was diagnosed with pyruvate dehydrogenase complex deficiency, which is, at the time, there was like 400 cases in the world.
Wow.
So we were obviously devastated.
Yeah.
You know, it's something that's not curable. And at the time, the literature about it was a death sentence. It was, they're not going to live past being an infant.
Yeah.
It was, you know, basically there's nothing you can do. We left the hospital under a bunch of monitors, making sure that she was still going to keep breathing. Those things are horrible because they false alarm all the time. You're always constantly up. And when kids with pyruvate dehydrogenase are little, they do okay because they don't have to have so many processes going on in their bodies.
Yeah.
But when she wasn't reaching any milestones. She ended up maybe about 1.5 years old. Both hips were displaced. So she was in a spica cast, which is a full body cast, for almost a year.
Wow.
Because they tried to do her hips just in case she would ever walk. Didn't work. Katie had 27 major surgeries in her lifetime.
Jeez.
And we finally were like, we're not going to do this anymore. It would just cause so much pain for her. And we always had to weigh out whether it was going to make a difference or whether we were doing it for ourselves. And that's a really hard place to be as a parent because you want them to do all these things.
Yeah.
And I think medical personnel sometimes wants to push you towards doing those, whether it's money-based or...
I was about to say, do you think is that...
Yeah, so it's really hard to make those decisions, especially as a brand new mom. Like, you're like, oh my God, I want everything for her. But then you learn that it just wasn't working. We ended up having Jet when Katie was 3. So I got pregnant again with Jet, which terrified me. Absolutely terrified me.
Because you thought you was going to relive the whole thing again?
Yeah. I mean, my whole entire pregnancy, we were actually in Florida at the time. We had moved to Florida, and they asked me from Winnie Palmer to do, it was a collective between Winnie Palmer and Cleveland Children's Hospital. Katie was seen strictly at Cleveland Children's Hospital because they were the experts on pyruvate dehydrogenase. Dr. Stackpool is here in Florida, and then we had a physician up in Cleveland that, there's the two doctors basically in the world that even try and manage this, not treat, but manage this disease. Yeah. So when Jet was in utero, we actually ended up doing multiple amniocentesis, and they wrote a paper on him from Winnie Palmer and Cleveland Children's Hospital because we allowed them to do in utero testing for other families to be able to go on and have healthy children. So now there's so many more families. I mean, it's been documented so many more times, but a lot of it is from back 15 years ago when these families, we all got together and said, we need to make a difference, and we need to let people know that this isn't necessarily a death sentence. We need to rewrite this script on pyruvate dehydrogenase. And there was probably about 5 founding moms that really changed that narrative online. So we were able to go into all these different websites and the Mitochondrial Disease Foundation, and I was the first person to ever sit on an FDA drug study, actually in front of the FDA in Washington, all because of Katie. Katie was my driving force for everything that I did because I'm like, I'm going to make sure that her life mattered. Wow. So we stopped all of her surgeries when she was about 4 or 5. She did okay, but she was severe. Feeding tube, she couldn't roll over, so she had to be moved every 30 minutes maybe.
Yeah, I got you.
So she didn't get bed sores, stuff like that. She was so sweet though. They said she was deaf and blind, but if you kissed her really loud in her ear, she'd get the biggest smile on her face. She laughed once, and after her brain surgery, she never laughed again. It just took that away from her. Yeah. But then we had Jet, and Jet was so energetic and loving and amazing, and there's such a difference. You miss out on so many things when you have a special needs child, but then you have this amazing little baby that's so in tune with his sister that they had a really special bond. So Katie, we raised a lot of money every year for Katie's birthday because we always said her birthday was like a big milestone. They said she wouldn't live past 6 months, a year. So we would throw these big fundraisers, and the entire music community would come together. Her first birthday, David Lee Roth went and gave us his only Moon Man Award for California Girls. Took it out of his cabinet, shipped it to us so that we could auction it off for pyruvate dehydrogenase. Wow. It was the only award he ever won, and he gave it to us. Wow. Yeah. I mean, we had Eddie Van Halen signing guitars for us. And they loved her. They knew her. She had been right next to them on stage, They were so supportive of the entire fundraising movement that we put together. I mean, Katie actually, there's a blind school in St. Louis that the entire art and music wing is named after her. And it's really special to us because we were able to raise enough money to put that there, and it was all just off of loving her, and caring about these other children. But she's, even now, I mean, she passed away, it'll be 6 years in December. She passed away on New Year's Eve, December, on 2014. She got a fever, and 5 days later she was gone.
And how old was she?
She died 10 days after her 9th birthday.
Wow.
So we had 9 years with her.
I was about to say 9.
9
and
years.
They said they gave her 6 months?
6 months, yeah.
Wow.
So I think it was a combination of, we had really great medical team that we were able to handpick, which we were fortunate for. We had amazing nursing staff in our home. Obviously, Jerry and I, were hands-on 9 years. I mean, we did not sleep for 9 years. I mean, she had to be suctioned all the time. Feeding tube, breathing machines. For the last 3 years, she was on full oxygen all the time. So she slept next to me for 9 years. in my bed right next to me for 9 years. Because I
Wow.
never knew if when I woke up she was still going to be there.
Yeah.
So it was hard, but I found this really great community of women and dads. I can't say not dads, but
Dads.
And we just came together because of it. And they're still some of my best friends in the whole world.
Yeah.
And like I was telling you before, that Pinka obviously is a big tribute to Katie. The K is for her, and the A is for Abby, who her mom and I met when the girls were 3 months old in a chat room about a seizure disorder because we had no idea what our daughters had.
Wow.
So we were just in every chat room at the time.
Yeah.
You know, it was before Facebook and all that.
Yeah.
And we thought our kids were just having these major seizures. And we found each other, and then we were both like, this sounds so similar, like, and we became friends online. And to this day, she's still one of my best friends in the whole world. But we ended up switching over to this, once we got diagnosed, we switched over to pyruvate dehydrogenase. And Abby unfortunately lost her battle a couple years before Katie did. So it was, I just have this special bond with Kelly. I don't know.
Yeah.
Our girls, we always said they were best friends. We see each other at least once a year. She ended up having another child about the same time as I had Jet. So we had that in common.
Wow.
And she's just a wonderful person. So about 2 years ago, we started talking about doing something in honor of the girls. And I always knew I wanted to have an art and music studio. So just on a whim, I looked up the girls' initials and like typed it into Google. And it made me cry. Like the first thing that came up was Ka, which is Katie and Abby, but Ka is the spirit that's left behind when someone passes away. And I was just like, okay, that's a lot to take in. And I called Kelly and I'm like, do you know what Ka means? And she's like, no. And I said, it's the girls' initials, but it means this as well. She starts crying, I start crying. I'm like, we have to use that in some sort of way. And, you know, obviously, unfortunately, Katie lost her battle. But the morning that she passed away, we were in Key West, and the sunrise was bright pink, like bright pink. And we were on White Street Pier, her dad, Jet, my brother, and it was just a moment where we just were like, this is beautiful, you know? And every time we see a pink sunset, which I'm so thankful to a lot of my friends, because every time around the world, people will send me photos of pink sunsets and be like, all right, Katie's here, you know? So we kind of put it all together and made this tribute to her. And I was home for a long time grieving, making sure that my son was okay. But then now we're 6 years in, and I was like, all right, we're going to go and do this. Not only do I need to do it for her, I need to do it for myself too. Because
that's a lot.
Yeah.
And to be dealing with for 9 years. But it goes back to what I was saying earlier too, where adversity brings people together. And then I was thinking about something else too, or something came to mind when you were talking. And you said that you wanted her life to mean something. And even what you did at that time. And it made me think of purpose. And when a person is like moving within their purpose or doing something, how it's into service to people. And that's how you make something that lasts, when it's an impact into someone's life. And you moved, you know, unselfishly. And that's why what you did, even at that time, and that's why it was so big and it resonated with a lot of people, because it wasn't about you. And people can feel sincerity.
100%.
Like, you know, they can feel sincerity. So you said, you know, what you went through with your daughter was your motivation for everything after that. So what were you doing before that? And how did that even impact you to move into where you are now?
What was I doing
you touched
before
on
I had
Pinka
Katie?
before. Yeah, because you touched on Pinka already. I was gonna move into that. But
right.
So what were you doing before that?
Get your merch.
So, like,
you had
back
a
to the
company
beginning.
before that. You had a company before that.
Yes.
Before Pinka.
Before Pinka, yes. Well, if you want to go way back, I mean, I grew up in New York, upstate though. I always have to clarify.
New York.
New York, upstate New York. I was born almost as the top you can go in Messina, which is like on the Canadian border.
Cold?
Very cold.
Jeez.
Actually, I think Messina gets the most snowfall in New York out of anywhere else. Was born, you know, in 1980s, so a long time ago, but we moved around a lot. I was telling you before, you know, we were kind of talking about things. I went to 11 different schools. My mom was a musician and an artist, and you know, she would find houses that at the time she could afford, and she was a single mom most of my life. My dad traveled for work, and they didn't work out. So there was the three of us, and she worked a lot, and it was hard for her to maintain things. But she would find these houses, which when you're growing up and you're like, what are we doing? Now I look back on it with my brother and I'm like, they are some of the coolest houses ever. Like now that I live in Florida, I'm like, I kind of want to go back to those houses in New York, because they were like secret hallways and they're part of like the Underground Railroad and stuff. But they'd be
The
like
houses?
Yeah.
What?
So they'd be farmhouses, like 7 miles out dirt roads. Some of them didn't have running water and stuff, but we loved it, you know. As kids, we would find all these cool treasures in them. And my mom would fix them up, and then we'd move on, or you know, she'd have new jobs someplace. But it was interesting. So probably by the time I was like 17, I emancipated around 16 years old. 16, 17 in that era. But it wasn't. I was a really independent person, and I loved to work. And I think when I was 17, I had 3 jobs.
Jeez. At one time?
At one time, and school.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I would take the bus, and I didn't have a car until I was like in my 20s. But I started like working, doing in music venues and bars. Probably a little earlier than I should have, but I've been 6 foot tall pretty much since I was 14, so no one really questioned it too much. But yeah, so I loved the bar business because I got to talk to people and meet new people, and everybody's stories were so interesting. I was like, I never want to sit in an office by myself. I love everybody that's sitting in front of me. I didn't always work like the nicest places, but I loved like the rough ones because you get the most interesting clientele. So then when I was like 20, so I always worked a bunch of jobs. I think at one point I ran three or 4 different places at one time. So I'd like wake up in the morning, open them all up, then go back, you know, work happy hour at one or another, and then I'd close them at nighttime.
Wow.
And there was 1 year that I worked like 9 months without a day off, like not even one day off, because I loved working. And so then when I was 20 is when I met my ex-husband, Jerry. And we met at a place called Northern Lights, which is actually not called that anymore. It was sold. He was there mixing a David Lee Roth show, and I had to pay them out at the end of the night, and they got snowed in. So I had to find them hotels and all this stuff. And I actually never even heard from him again until like a couple months down the road. But I had to go to a bartenders convention in Vegas, and that's kind of where our lives.
Bartender conventions?
Yeah, they're amazing. They're so fun because first of all, every booth is a bar, and they have all the coolest like merch and promo stuff.
New drinks that are coming out.
Oh yeah, new machines, new wine, new liquor, everything. It's super fun. So I ended up going there, and Jerry and he had lived in Vegas at the time, and we ended up just heading it off. And so then I was offered a job at the Rio. So
in Vegas.
So
you was in New York when you?
I was in New York
doing the 9.
I was doing all these jobs, moving all the time. You know, my life was always kind of in this. You know, if I have to move, I have to move. If I have to go to a new bar, go to a new bar. Yeah. And I was happy. You know,
cool.
It was cool. My brother worked for me, and then he went into the Air Force. And then, like I said, I met Jerry, and I got this job offer from the Rio. And I loved it. And at the same time, which is a lot of people know, but I was asked, the Rio and Harrah's are owned by the same company. So I actually was asked to be a showgirl at Harrah's at the same time, but not in their shows, just to dress up and have family photos taken with me. So I was a manager there, and I'm in a bunch of people's family photos from Vegas because you have to be 5'11" to be a showgirl in Vegas and put the costume on.
There's a height.
There was a height, yes.
So, now listen, side question.
Okay.
About that. Because what movie was I watching? I think it's in Oceans.
Oh, probably.
It's in Oceans, and they were talking about the women, and they fired the one girl because I guess she gained weight or something like that. But they hired them under the pretense of they were models.
Right.
So they were able to regulate
Right.
their... Is that true?
Yes, it is.
Really?
Very true. Yes, and to be a manager at the Rio, you have to know a lot about your clients. So it's a lot of training. You have to know the top people that come into the casino.
Really?
You have to know everything about them. You have to know if they're with their wife or their girlfriend, so you can't mess that up.
Don't mess that up.
Don't mess that up.
Does the house always win?
Nah,
Okay.
there's a couple games you can play definitely that you have better odds at. And one of them is single deck blackjack.
Okay.
Single deck blackjack is really a game that's by chance. That's the best odds that you can play. That's why it's always more expensive to play single deck blackjack because the odds to the house are worse.
Blackjack.
So yeah.
Okay.
And craps is another one that is,
I don't know
you're
how to play
rolling
craps.
dice.
Oh wait, that's when they put the you bet on the number.
Right, so you have the whole table and people are,
And
it's the one you see in movies all the time
dice,
where people are
throw the
yelling
dice,
and blowing the dice. So
okay.
That's actually a really fun game to play. But
Never
those
played
two
craps.
games to me, obviously video poker is.
Love poker. Oh my gosh, that's
Video poker though, or regular poker?
both, man, because I can play poker. I believe. Don't quote me on it.
Okay.
I believe I have a really strong poker face.
I don't. I'm like, woo! I'm bad at it. That's why I like playing blackjack. Jerry and I would play blackjack a lot. But Jerry's very good at blackjack, so they didn't really like him to play a lot of places.
Because he would win.
Yeah. But
I totally sidetracked you.
no, you're fine. So I moved to Vegas and I worked at the Rio, and I only worked there a short time, and we got married and then kind of back to where we were. We moved to California and I got pregnant with our daughter, and Jerry at the time owned Ultimateers, which is one of the big, you see it in sometimes in Target now, it's a big headphone company. And that he, in 2005 when Katie was born, it was not a great situation with some partners, and Jerry ended up not being at Ultimateers anymore. So we moved to Florida, and I was like, why are we moving to Apopka, Florida?
Florida.
So many people ask me this question. They're like, why Apopka? And it's a very interesting fact about Apopka that a lot of people don't know.
I probably don't.
You probably don't. So we had a non-compete that we could not be in music headphones.
Mm-hmm.
So we decided that we were going to do custom aviation headsets for pilots, like private pilots.
Real quick, this wasn't JH. This was
So we started JH Audio
Okay.
As an aviation headset company.
in Vegas or Apopka.
We were actually living in Missouri at the time because we had moved there when Katie got sick.
Okay.
We started JH Audio on the desk in a back bedroom of our house.
Where
in
all
Webster
the greatest
Groves.
ideas are born.
Right. Jerry always says all the greatest ideas come on bar napkins, but and he still to this day designs his earphones on bar napkins. So
If it ain't
I give him credit for it.
Yeah.
But so Jerry, we find out we're pregnant with Jet, and he's like, we're going to move to Apopka, Florida.
Yay.
And I'm like, okay, where's that? I don't know anything about it.
Right.
So, like I said, interesting fact is that the airport in Apopka, Florida, is one of the only airports in the country that you own the land that your hangar's on. You don't lease it.
Wait.
Yes.
Apopka has an airport?
It does. It does. Its number calling out on the plane is XO4. It's out 441 towards Zellwood, like right before you hit
Okay, I know where
Zellwood.
Zellwood is at.
Right, so right before you get to Zellwood, Apopka Airport's on the left-hand side.
Wow.
Very small airport.
Yeah.
Well, it's actually growing pretty big right now. So he's like, we're going to buy a hangar at Apopka Airport. And I'm like,
Buy a hangar.
buy a hangar. Because, like I said, most airports, you buy the hangar, lease the land. So if they want to take another runway through somewhere, they can tell you, okay, well, you got to move your hangar over there or over here, right? In Apopka, they can't. Their runways are set, so you own it, you own the land, you own everything.
Wow.
So Jerry had done a bunch of research. Jerry's actually a private pilot himself. And so that's, people always ask me, how did you end up in Apopka?
And that's how.
And that's why.
Freaking Apopka Airport.
Apopka Airport brings a lot of people.
Well, way to go, because I met you, so.
And we started
Great
our
work,
business
Apopka.
here, and you know, we moved here, and obviously our son was born here. He was born in Longwood, but we moved to Apopka Airport. We lived in Apopka at first. We ended up living. We bought a house in Mount Dora. We loved it, and then obviously Katie got really sick, and that's when, you know, typically when you have a sick child, marriages end up having a hard time. We ended up, and we talk about it all the time, you know, it's definitely very hard to maintain a relationship and own a business together when you have a child in hospice. So it was, you know, we made the decision that we're just gonna separate, which, like I said, obviously, as most couples do, you go through this process, and it's not always nice at first, but he's one of my best friends in the whole world. He actually helped set up all of the sound here at Pinka. He's really happy that the place is here. He's happy that there's live music happening. So
Music guy.
So yeah, and we left a little while. We lived in Key West, but something has always drawn me back to Apopka.
You was in Key West?
Yeah, so we lived in Key West. When Katie went into hospice, we decided I sold everything here, and I bought a house. It's an interesting story. I bought a house in Key West that they told me I either had to tear down because it was going to get condemned, or like I had to fix it. They wouldn't even give me an insurance policy. So it's a little hard to talk about, but when we moved there, bought the house, and I said I want her to be near the beach. I want her to have whatever time she has left to be enjoyable and in the sun and us be happy. So we ended up moving down there in September. I closed on my home. We started the renovations. We lived in a short-term rental kind of thing. We brought a nurse with us. I brought my brother. Well, my brother was driving down every other weekend to help. We completely redid this home in 3 months, and we had to be out of the rental house on New Year's Eve by noon, and Katie passed away that morning at 7:50 a.m.
Wow.
She never made it to the new house. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you had to do all at that time, and then you had.
And then 3 months later, my dad passed away. So he had a heart attack here in Apopka, and my brother found him. But I always say that Katie chose, and he went to be with her. But it was definitely an interesting time. So it took me a long time to be able to process that whole thing, and then do this, you know.
Oh yeah, so let's talk about Pinka for a little bit. So it's expressive art space. I was here the opening night, which was amazing.
Thank you.
So because you told me that you want to do something, which you already mentioned that, but what made you want to do something like this, and then what is, I guess, Pinka? Talk a little bit about that.
So Pinka is, we call it an expressive art space because since I was 12 years old, I've wanted to open either an art gallery or an art bar. I have a journal from when I was 12. I always loved being in art galleries growing up with my mom teaching the classes. It was like a constant for us with all the moving. Yeah. She worked at this spot called Gallery 53 in Cooperstown, New York. And the woman that owned it would wear airplane earrings all the time. Like, it was just so like a constant in our lives. It was awesome.
Yeah. And
we would take the classes, and we'd have friends, we'd see the same kids come through, and it was a time for us to just really, first of all, be with our mom, because she was such a busy person, and being a single mom, like, she could bring us to this gallery and teach the classes. But it also gave us this awesome creative outlet, you know, that we could help deal with whatever we were going through, or no matter where we lived at the time, we were always brought back there. So this spot I've wanted to have for a long, long time. I want a place where anybody is welcome.
Right.
I don't care your age, your sexual orientation, your religion, like none of that matters when you walk through our door, because we just want to give people a safe space to create. That's it. You know, we want it to be, if you want to come in and do spoken word, if you want to read your poetry, if you want to go into the back and paint, and that's how you can express yourself, we are all for it. Through music, through theater. You know, we have karaoke, which is very popular on Thursdays for people to express themselves, which I love. We even had a whole dance thing the other Thursday night, which was awesome. But we want it to be, we have everything from little kids classes all the way through the elderly. We also have a full special needs program here, which is obviously very near and dear to my heart.
Exactly.
We want kids, we call it our special abilities classes. We want to give them extra time to be able to express and create with certified teachers. My mom is a certified art and music therapist for special needs. I feel there's not enough spaces that do it and do it right, where people feel comfortable bringing their children. Which obviously we don't have a lot of it around here. We have big organizations, but not necessarily a place that's just part of the community that you can bring your children into and feel comfortable doing it. Once, you know, obviously opening this during COVID has not been the easiest situation. I signed all of my contracts in January. So before COVID happened.
I mean, you signed it.
When they shut everything down and I'm like right ready to start construction on this blank space, I just sat at my house and cried, because I was like, what did I do? I've waited years to do this, and then, which so many people in this country are in the same exact situation. I know a bunch of people, even in Popka, that are in the same situation, where you started this process and you can't pump the brakes on it. You have contracts to uphold. So when we opened October 1st, we were still in construction the night before. It took a long time to get licensing and all this stuff, but the whole process, you know, through the whole thing, I was like, all right, well, maybe it'll get better in a couple weeks. Maybe it'll get better in 2 months, you know. And now being open, I'm so thankful for the people that have come in, and the people that are starting to realize who we are through this whole process. But we also have full production music stage. So we have karaoke on Thursdays and live music every Friday and Saturday night, which is another thing that's very important to me, because for the last 7.5 months, 97% of the touring and entertainment business has been out of work with no pay.
Entertainers aren't entertaining.
They are not entertaining. And people are so happy to come out and see live music. And the entertainers, the people that are playing here, are so happy to have a space to play that is like this, that's so accepting of everybody. We want, you know, any kind of genre of music. We want any kind of medium of art here. We want the community to feel like they can have meetings here. We have almost 5,000 square feet, so we're able to social distance people. We have a capacity of 183, but we're not allowing that right now. We really want people to feel safe. You know.
Which is important.
And we have a very nice beer and wine bar.
The wine.
I like wine.
That's good, because I mean, when I first came in here and we were talking about it, that's what I was thinking about, the whole art with a twist. I think that's the name of the whole thing.
The expressive art space.
Well, no, where it was what I thought your space was before, you know, I was really introduced with it. To it was the whole painting with the twist, where you do that, and you was like, oh, well, we do, and I was just like, oh,
we do.
Wow, which is
lots of stuff here,
which is cool. I wanted to mention two things to you. First one was, you've overcome like so much. So talk a little bit about that, and then you seem, you know, you seem still lively, positive about everything. So just talk a little bit about overcoming, I guess, and what goes on in your mind to keep you.
Yes, obviously we've talked a little bit off camera about some things that have happened,
Yeah.
and I think that my brother and I have this saying. It's funny, it is funny, but we have this saying that people ask us about our lives and certain things that have happened, and we just say we laugh and we laugh,
Yeah.
And it's definitely a defense mechanism, but it's also like you wake up every day and you can choose to be happy, or you can choose to be miserable.
Facts.
That's on you, and I learned that a long time ago, especially even with my daughter passing. That was the worst day of my life. There's the only other thing that could happen that's worse is losing my son as well, but there's this mentality that I have that no day can be that bad, so every day is better than that. So no day is my worst day, and if I get up and I'm positive, obviously we all have days that we're like,
Right.
I'm frustrated or I'm mad at something, or but like I said, you choose to wake up with a positive attitude or you don't.
Right.
The only person that can change you is you. And my brother, my sister, we all kind of live by that attitude that if you have positive attitude, you're going to get positive feedback from other people.
Right.
If you do good, you'll see good. Good karma brings good karma. I don't know how, I just don't really want to be negative, I think I've been blessed so much, even with all the other things that have happened. Counting your blessings and your gratitudes is so powerful. So powerful. I'm blessed to be in this building. I'm blessed even during COVID to have this space and have the energy, honestly. I know that there's some things that I've done in my life that make me very tired. I've fostered newborns, and that was exhausting. But I love kids so much that I just want to help, and I want them to, I just love having kids around me.
Yeah.
It makes me feel happy because kids are so innocent and just, I don't know. I guess there's just been this life purpose for me.
Yeah.
So, and I honestly, I can always say, I don't even know what's going to come next because I know the story's not over.
Right.
People have asked me to write a book about my life because it's been so interesting. And the thing I always say is, I don't know how the book would end. How do you write a book that you don't know how to end it,
To be continued.
To be continued,
yeah.
multiple dots? I don't know.
Yeah. So what, you spoke a little, you said fostering. What is that like, having a foster child?
So I actually went through the process to become an adoptive parent through Seminole County 3 years ago. It's a very grueling process. I would not take it lightly if people are thinking about fostering. And you start with these giant, huge classes, and each week, as they get more into kids experiencing trauma, you see more people falling out. It's definitely not for the weak. But about 4 weeks into this process, they pulled me aside and they said, "You would make a wonderful foster parent. We know your background, we know your history, we know about your daughter." And I said, hold the brakes. I'm here for adoption, not foster, right? And I said, I need to think about it.
Yeah.
I'm a single mom. That's a lot, And they said, no worries. Every week they're like, hey, did you think about that yet? And I'm like, oh. So I really sat down and I thought about everything that I believe in and everything that I tell myself I am, about being a good person, about wanting to help others. And I was like, obviously this opportunity is presented to me because I was supposed to do something with it.
Right.
So I went back and I said, okay, I'll change my narrative to fostering instead of adoption. I've always wanted more kids. Not necessarily now that I'm 40, but so
at the time you wanted
at the
more
time
kids.
I was like, yeah, we're good.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to go through it. I got the call the day that I was licensed. I got the call, and it's a really hard process, but I obviously can't talk about any of the actual fostering.
Right.
But what I can say is, if you want to be, it's very hard to know that you have to love children unconditionally, but know that they are going to either go back to a family or move on to a family member or possibly be adopted at some point by you or somebody else. And I think that, I know 100% that my daughter gave me the ability to do that, because I was able to let her go in a positive way.
Yeah.
And it's different when, you let a child go and they're maybe to a family member or reunited with their birth parent.
Right.
That you can feel good about what you did, but you still are heartbroken, and it's the weirdest feeling, but I know that I was meant to do it for that reason. Do I want to do it more? No. Yeah. Like, that chapter is closed in my life. I know that I did the right thing when I did it.
Yeah.
But I want to focus on what I'm doing here, because I think that I can help so many more people and bring joy and entertainment and maybe some sort of therapy to them in a different way. And it's just, I've gone through so many different things in my life that I'm like, okay, now I did that and I feel good about it. Time to move on to the next thing I'm going to feel good about. So. And
that's big, which is really good. And I think that by you doing it, just sitting here listening to you, I believe you have been severely blessed and fortunate in the things that you've been through. And I think a lot of times, even when we're going through something, like, yeah, we're going through it, we're feeling it, but I think that, majority of what we're going through is for people watching as well. Because overcoming, moving through it, and coming out on the other side. Because there's a lot of people that have gone through that same story that ended up on the flip side
100%
from where you came out of. So big ups to that, and that's a blessing too.
It's a blessing for me because I've been able to talk to, like losing my daughter, I've been able to talk to a lot of parents through that process. Yeah. It was, obviously you grieve, but there's a point when you have to say, I want what's best for my child every aspect of the way, and you're fighting with people to be like, this is what I want, what's best for her.
Yeah.
But then you have to say, at the same time, I want her to be comfortable in passing, and I want to be the best parent I can be in that situation too. Right. And it's hard. I've known other parents that can't get out of bed for a year, and it's just the way we process, and you need people to talk to. And it's a really crappy club to be in, believe me. Whether you're a foster parent and you lose a child that you've taken care of for however long, or you lose an actual biological child, they're not great clubs. But you can find joy in the people that are around you. And I'm blessed that I've found those people. It has not been the most negative situation that it can be. Yeah. And I try to be that for other people too. You wake up and, like I said, you have your gratitudes and you want to be positive, but I really do try to be a good friend and make sure that I'm staying in contact with people that might need that, as they do for me. So right. I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate.
So I guess I did have one more thing two more things I wanted to ask you. The first one is this, and this is kind of, I know you're still focused. You're doing Pinka now, but do you have anything coming up next? Like, are you so focused on Pinka where you're like, let me just do this right now before I move into the next thing? Yeah, I'm normally a person that's got like a million things going on, and up until I started this, I did a lot of charity work because it's very important to me. Pinka is really like, I want it to work. So I'm really trying to focus on that. Obviously, and be a good mom at the same time. I do have my 12-year-old who, has been great during this process, but it's different for him now that I'm doing this. But no, I don't, no. This is my focus right now. Yeah. I want it to be great, and obviously it's hard opening right now. So we're just really trying to make sure that we're giving to the community what they want. Yeah. And that's my main focus right now. I can't tell you maybe a year from now or 6 months. I don't know. I don't know. Something else may hit you.
Something will hit me, or I don't know. Yeah. There's a lot going on, like positive in my family right now. So we're gonna focus on that right now. But no, this is my main focus right now. Yeah. And I usually do have a million things going on. So
I know this. The the sit down has taken all of my focus. Like I have a lot of stuff that I was doing before, and it all just kind of just went.
Yeah.
I haven't stopped, but it's come to a nice slowdown.
Yeah.
And then just focus on this. So last thing, like, what do you feel about? How do you feel about what's happening right now in our country? This thing here. I don't want to get too political.
See, I don't ever get political.
But like,
but
what do you notice? What do you see?
Like I said, I don't talk politics,
Right.
but I see a country really afraid and I feel like people just are so unsure about what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
And that terrifies me a little bit. Obviously, I'm older. Like, I see my little sister. She's 25. I'm 40, so we have different kind of generational stuff going on in my family. My son's 12, and he probably talks more politics than I do.
Really?
Very much so. Yeah.
Wow.
It's he'll get in the car and talk about the different presidential nominees, and I'm like, and we talk very openly about it because I like open speech in my house. I don't know. I hope that we can find. I'm scared because of COVID and the things that are happening. I hope we can go back to some sort of normal.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we can. I think this is definitely the presidential election that's happening right now is changing things that aren't ever going to go back to the way that they were. I don't know if it's for good or for not. I guess we'll have to wait and see. But I think people need some sense of normalcy right now. It's been 7, 8, 9 months of just unsure, not knowing. I think it's giving a ton of anxiety to people. I think there's so many issues. Like, everybody is so focused on this presidential election and COVID as this big picture,
right.
But we're not looking at the mental health issues that it's creating. We're not looking at the abuse issues in the foster care system, which is a huge thing for me that it's creating. They're just not being talked about. So those are the things that I hope people start to talk about more than this overall major problem, I mean, if you think about it, for how many months kids didn't go to school, and those are our foster care, reporters. These kids have been home with substance abuse and depression and all these things happening because their parents aren't at work, but no one's really talking about it. So I like what you're doing because it's bringing more of those conversations out, rather than it's just big picture, like, oh, okay, this is happening. Well, what about all the things that are happening underneath it? Especially, like, we've had this conversation now. Yes, Pinka, but where did it come from, and where did all these little arms of this, that's who I am, So I hope the country just kind of, in the next couple of weeks, I hope people unite, not become further apart from each other, if that makes sense.
Divide. I think a lot of this country right now is division.
That
and
makes
it's
me
crazy.
sad.
Yeah, it does. And not to say that we had complete unity before. There's always been things in every country has issues. But I think now division is being so pushed to the forefront, and I feel like people
it's just like
want
it's
to
like
be
an agenda.
divided. Like they feed into that. Like they want it. Like, you want the division, which, I mean, whatever. But I was talking to a couple of guys, and they were saying, like, 10 years from now, we're going to see the effects of today.
100%.
Because the kids are going to grow up.
100%.
You know what I'm saying? Like, we're going to notice.
That's that's a lot of what I'm saying, is that we're not thinking about all of the issues that this is creating, that we're just not talking about or haven't really come to the surface yet, and it scares me. It scares me and it worries me. It worries me for my son. Like, what's the effect of a pandemic that maybe the kids aren't really talking about, but these kids are going through a pandemic, and it's stressful. This is not like anything anybody in history has ever really experienced. What is that long-term effect? And
especially if their parents aren't handling it well themselves.
Right. We're talking about long-term effects of a vaccine. Why aren't we talking about long-term effects of mental health? It's just all kind of goes hand in hand. So, I mean, that's a whole other conversation.
Pray for it.
For sure.
This was dope. I appreciate you talking to me. Yeah.
Normally I'm a little nervous on camera, but this was actually a really amazing way to do it.
You didn't show any nervousness at all.
I was like, don't say So, no, this is really fun. I I enjoy talking on this, like, where you're not, like, looking at a camera. I've done that a lot with, like, hospitals, and they're like, just look at the camera and act normal. I'm like, that's not normal.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
That's why I don't have a screen showing us.
Yeah.
Because it was distracting.
It would be super distracting.
I've done it before. That's all
hopefully
I have,
you got good content.
No, it was good.
Okay.
That was good. That's all I have, unless you have something that you want to.
No, just come to Pinka. Everybody come to Pinka.
Come to Pinka. I'm going to throw the, tag the page. I'm going to throw the address in this video, so check it out. Thank you guys for watching. Give this video a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on notifications and all that jazz. And shop the sit down. That's all I got.
Thank you. Yes.
Deuces.
Awesome.